what's good, cannabis investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan, and today we're coming at you with This Week in Cannabis News from November 18th to the 24th. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it helps out my channel, and of course, subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos. Now, try to think of these videos as a time capsule. Try to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the U.S. cannabis industry. Identify top U.S. MSOs that you keep seeing pop up that you think will be worth more in the future than they are now based on their current market caps, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. And another wild week in cannabis. As quickly as Matt Gaetz was in, he's now out, and I just want to reassure everybody that we got to trust the process. Don't panic too hard, because never in the history has the DEA gone against an HHS recommendation, despite how corrupt the DEA has been in the past. And so take from that what you will, and let me know what you think about this past week's development in the comments. But in comes Pam Bondi, Trump's next nomination, and according to Kim Rivers, I think she's a great pick, despite the fact that in 2016, according to Anthony Varel, she fought against smokable flower in Florida, and Kim says, to be fair, she was following the governor's direction on that at that time in that role, which leads us to believe that she will follow Trump's direction. But on top of that, another banger from FR Research, so thank you for sharing, as Pam works for Ballard Partners, the lobbying firm Trulieve now uses. If anyone knows, it is indeed probably Kim, and so that's very promising, and I did some fact checking. Ballard Partners, our team, Pam Bondi, is still active here. Of course, you can pause to read her bio or profile if you're interested. All these links will be in the comments. But furthermore, we go our clients, proudly representing leading organizations. And if we scroll through, are we going to see Trulieve? We're going to see Trulieve? Yes, we do see Trulieve right here. So you'll love to see it. However, we do got to play devil's advocate to share this one from Reach 420 to present more of a bearish case, because these are actual statements made by these individuals in the past. However, the good news, and while politicians don't do it very often, people can change their minds when presented with new information, or often when working for a new organization. And so, while there are little clues here and there saying that Pam Bondi okays new cannabis-based drug, who knows what she actually thinks now, she works for Ballard Partners, and they work for Trulieve. And so you gotta think the connection is there. Of course, maybe I'm just speculating, but just wanted to share everything that I found. While a reminder, from the Washington Post recently this week, this is an article, however, it's behind a paywall, so I will put all the links in the comments. But as of this week, fresh off the press, Trump admin intends to follow through with rescheduling cannabis to Schedule 3. This is according to an official familiar with the Trump team's plans who spoke on the condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to speak publicly. So not the most reassuring that this person has to stay anonymous. However, that is the latest we have in any mainstream press about what Trump's plans are. And so I figured I would try to ask Pam Bondi myself. I don't think I'm going to get a response, but hey, it's worth saying, hey, can you provide a comment on your current views towards the plant based on, the responsibility you're going to be taking on? And so while Trump did tweet this, he's only tweeted it once. It's not the most reassuring thing. He has spoken on other podcasts, though, Lex Fridman, and elaborated more on this. So at least it's not the only place he's mentioned it. However, we'd love to see him follow through on a bit more. But this, I think, is the most important visual this past week. So thank you, Jeremy Burke, for sharing this from Green Wave Advisors. Everybody, if you're looking at cannabis companies right now to potentially enter into, really good chart showing the effects of 280E on publicly traded cannabis companies from Green Wave. And of course, the biggest factor, not only is it the fake cannabis that's being sold as legit cannabis, but it's ultimately the 280E penalty or tax that these companies pay, making them effectively work for Uncle Sam. So you can see clearly cash on hand, which companies have the most cash, and which companies owe taxes either because they chose not to pay 280E because they deemed it unconstitutional and were hoping that Schedule 3 would happen sooner than later, or whatever their strategy is. It just goes to show where many of them are at right now. And so, of course, the most attractive pick of any MSO would be Green Thumb, because they have no taxes owed and they're flushed with cash on hand. Second would likely be Cresco Labs, as they have a lot more cash on hand than taxes owed. And then arguably third would be Trulieve, based on the large amount of cash they have on hand to cover the taxes owed if push came to shove. And so this is not advice, of course, but those seem to be the top 3 safest investments at this point going forward based on balance sheets. And so this is from a Wall Street Journal article. Of course, I'll put that link in the comments. And regardless of how crazy the market wants to act temporarily and see these share prices tumble as far as they have, it's pretty wild to think you can still get Green Thumb, Cresco, and Trulieve at such discounted prices this late in the game. And my TFSA contribution limit resets in January, and I just would feel lucky if I still get the chance to buy in at this low of prices at that point. And here's a prime example. This James V. Baker guy At $5.99 closing price of Trulieve, their market cap is $1.116 billion. Its stock is therefore selling at less than 1x sales based on 186.2 million shares and an estimated 2024 total revenue of more than their current market cap. It's insane. And they're producing cash flow and cash flow from operations. And so it's not going to last forever, so take from that what you will, not advice. But if this is a sign of anything of what's possibly to come when we eventually get uplisting, I'm not going anywhere. I'm sticking around for it because this is crazy. And of course, if you happen to take advantage of this, congrats to you. I wish I would have sold my air warrants a month back and tried to jump on this. But hey, hindsight's 2020. Of course, I did not capitalize or pull the trigger. But congrats to anyone that did, because if this is a sign of what's to come, fuck yeah. And moving along, some DEA updates, or ALJ hearing, I should say. Now, this is from Chris Roberts, one of the annoying journalists that doesn't seem to like cannabis very much based on the tone of his posts. Just going to share what he's sharing. Let me know what you think in the comments, as I haven't gone too deep into this. But breaking, DEA judge makes stunning decision on cannabis rescheduling matter, disqualifying nearly all of the pro-cannabis parties from participating in hearings on moving cannabis to Schedule 3. Now, why would they do such a thing? All of the anti-legalization designated participants, they all have standing, of course. Now, the DEA has known to be corrupt and shady in the past, and this seems to be more of that from a single DEA judge. Let me know what you think in the comments, or if you know more. Obviously quite disappointing, but wanted to share this because this at least kind of counteracts it. As the plot thickens from Kyle Yeager, DEA judge gives DEA 1 week to respond to serious allegations that the agency unlawfully communicated with the prohibitionist group SAM amid the cannabis rescheduling process. And thank you, Shane Pennington, that lawyer, admin.law, because I believe he was the one that filed this, whatever you call it, motion or filing, whatever made this DEA judge want to clap back at his own organization and give them 1 week to respond. So I'm not complaining. This happened on November 20th, so hopefully we'll get the answer next week, and I will update you. But wanted to share this good finding from Jeremy Burke, as the judge ruled that SAM's standing in the rescheduling hearing is the effect that rescheduling would have on its finances as a cannabis skeptic organization. Has nothing to do with the effects of cannabis on the overall American public, which is insane, especially when a few stories back you're seeing that the judge is disqualifying any pro-cannabis participants. Make it make sense. So, read explicitly, they won't be arguing what they see as harms of rescheduling. They'll have to argue narrowly why rescheduling would hurt their ability to fundraise and continue to pump out bullshit. Like, no fucking wonder. But imagine this quote. And in the case of SAM, it claims to have standing based on, get this, the potential effect rescheduling would have on its training and advocacy expenditures as a cannabis skeptical material and lecturing source, otherwise a bullshit propaganda machine. Mulrooney wrote. And this is the judge himself, and I believe Mulrooney is the more cannabis-friendly judge. And so hopefully he wants to just embarrass all of these frauds at once in the hearing. We'll find out. Is that too much to ask? Like, I think it might be a bit too much hopium, but that would be fantastic. And so this is the full story. I'll put that link in the comments. But last few on general updates, Trump picks Dr. Oz, who says seniors should give medical cannabis a try to lead Centers for Medicare and Medicaid services. And I consider this a win, not because Dr. Oz is a good doctor or anything like that, but if you're going to pick somebody for these large services that, you know, are responsible for medicine, you want somebody that is open to providing more access to a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative, certainly. And so we'll obviously see what all of these picks end up meaning come 2025, but this link will be in the comments, of course, if you're interested. And last but not least, an older one, November 15th, but just wanted to reiterate RFK's plans to legalize cannabis as the new HHS head and psychedelics to fund recovery programs. And so while I covered this in some of my last week's video, this seems to be as up-to-date as possible. And so the incoming Secretary of Health and Human Services under President-elect Trump, assuming he gets confirmed, has revealed a bold plan to address addiction in the U.S. He plans to legalize cannabis and psychedelics using tax revenue to fund recovery programs, and these will combine addiction treatment with organic farming, offering a new path for those struggling with substance abuse. And so a bit more here on the legalization and regulation of substances. Now, again, whether this is from a new statement or kind of just piggybacking off old quotes of his, I'm not exactly sure, but I don't think RFK's positions would have changed too much. We'll ultimately, again, just have to wait until January 20th. It'll be a new world come that time. Now, on to some state updates, at least sales-wise. From Cleveland.com, as more cannabis taxes coming to Ohio, local governments thanks to high demand in budding industry. No shit. that people want access to legal cannabis, highlighting that in the first 3 months since legalizing August 6th, $15.5 million has been collected for state and local governments from an extra tax on cannabis. Now, of course, the main thing is, are these taxes going to go back to the right places? Let's hope. Customers are currently paying 10% on all adult use sales, and so, yeah, Ohio is certainly banking. Now, according to the statute, the taxes go to several accounts in the state treasury, including 36% to cannabis, social equity, and job funds. Hopefully, they help get people the employment that they need. 36% to a host of community cannabis funds exclusively for communities where there are adult use dispensaries, so given back to those that took on the opportunity. 25% to substance abuse and addiction funds to support efforts of the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, cool, and 3% to a Division of Cannabis Control and Tax Commissioner fund to support the division's operations and defray the cost of administering the tax. Whatever that means, sounds shady, but good update out of Ohio, of course. Legalizing cannabis works. And federal reform. While from New Cannabis Ventures, Michigan cannabis sales growth was slow again in October, grew 0.6% from September, but these last 2 months definitely seem to fall quite a bit from the record-breaking August that was almost $300 million, so take from that what you will. We're going to look out for December, of course, because as we can see last year, December 23, that jumped up from all previous numbers, and so likely we'll see November pick up, and then December hopefully be around the August high. We'll find out. But at $268.6 million, sales were up 2.2% from last year. And so breakdown here of medical versus adult use volume. Pretty wild, but of course, what you buy at the adult use dispensary is the medicinal plant. While they got a breakdown of sales by product type for adult use, what went where if you're interested, the majority of it, and then for medical cannabis sales, not even breaking 1 million this past month. That is wild. And then, of course, when you provide equal access to opportunity to Michiganders and allow many people to join in by offering many licenses to sell out illegal dispensaries, you get a drop in prices, which is great on the consumer's end, while allowing everyone else to compete on the volume. And so far in 2024, they have grown still by 9.2%. So that is very promising. And lastly, from the Dank Informer, Florida medical cannabis active patients are back at an all-time high at 887K, which we like to see. Of course, it's been a long time since we've sort of been stagnant. However, good to see that rising back up finally. And thank you, Hirsch, for adding this, as all veterans in Florida should have their renewal and registration fees waived. This is one of the more realistic potential reforms in Florida in 2025, as there's 1.5 million veterans living there. So I'll put this link in the comments as well if you want to go through that. Well, on to some MSO news. Trulieve to open medical cannabis dispensary in Jacksonville, Florida, continuing to put their head down, focus on what they can control, and expand their footprint while it's still early. And so this will open officially Saturday, November 23rd, which is today, and then grand opening will be Friday, December 6th. So good on Trulieve for continuing to dominate in Florida. While got 2 more, actually, Trulieve to open Florida medical dispensaries in Dania Beach and Spring Hill. So that's 3 more, basically, by the end of this weekend. More information here. Grand opening celebrations were yesterday at this one. So it seems like this one, it was earlier this past week. Yeah, well, this one is the newest, freshest open. And then Trulieve Cannabis Corp announces insider share purchases by executive leadership and board members. Cool. They were not big buys by any means, but highlighting that certain members purchased a total of 72,273 shares, kind of peanuts, at prices between $5.63 and $7.19. I don't know if this is the best way to instill investor confidence, but I guess it's better than not. So take from that what you will. No complaints here from me. While from Green Thumb, continuing to expand as well, and happy to celebrate that they've expanded their national retail footprint to over 100 stores now nationwide, with the opening of Rise Carson City on U.S. Highway 50 in Nevada and Rise Brooklyn in Minnesota. And so that is the 11th location in Nevada and 8th in Minnesota, both opening today. And so that is likely 101 dispensaries nationwide for them. More information here if you wanted to pause to read, and as always, all these links will be in the comments if you wanted to go through them. But good on Green Thumb again for keeping quiet and focusing on what they can control. Well, on to the studies. This one from the American Journal of Gastroenterology, cannabis use and risk of hepatocellular carcinoma among patients hospitalized with HCV using the national inpatient sample as of October 2024. So just to highlight, the endocannabinoid system, which we all have in our bodies, modulates inflammatory pathways, which have been implicated in hepatocellular carcinoma pathology. And so this seems to be some sort of illness that can be caused by inflammation. However, among patients hospitalized with hepatitis C virus, so HCV, we want to remember that one as well, there's limited data on the trends and outcomes of active cannabis use to help medicate that. So it seems like people that get hep C then end up getting hepatocellular carcinoma, and we'll see what effect does cannabis have on that. And so methods and results, of course, you can pause to read, somewhat technical, but the conclusion was pretty straightforward. As they found patients hospitalized with hepatitis C, active cannabis use was associated with significantly lower odds of hepatocellular carcinoma compared to others. Fascinating findings, as cannabinoid-mediated signaling may reduce the risk of HCV-related or hepatitis C-related hepatocellular carcinoma. Further studies, of course, are needed to evaluate outcomes in this population group, but that's a great start. And of course, deschedule the damn plant so we can outright study all of this. Well, another one from the American Journal of Gastroenterology from October 2024 as well, looking at the impact of cannabis use in patients with inflammatory bowel disease, insights from the National Readmission Database 2019 to 2020. And so before we jump in, just worth adding these details, cannabis binds to the cannabinoid receptors in the enteric nervous system to exert its anti-inflammatory effects, leading to symptomatic relief. Pretty criminal that this plant is still stuck in the Schedule 1 then, if that's the case. Now, looking at the impact of cannabis on IBD, we're going to look at UC, which is ulcerative colitis, and then Crohn's disease, which is CD. And so among patients with IBD subcohorts with UC and CD patients, Crohn's disease had more hospital readmissions compared to ulcerative colitis. Ulcerative colitis patients without cannabis use appeared to have higher intestinal surgeries and malnutrition compared to cannabis users. Very interesting. IBD with cannabis use demonstrated a shorter length of hospital stay compared to non-users. Not a big difference, but 4.8 days compared to 5.4. They also demonstrated less steroid use and decreased mortality. That's good. Less of them died if they were actively using cannabis, it sounds like. Correct me if I'm wrong. The rate of intestinal obstruction and anemia was lower in cannabis users as well. However, complications such as fistula of the intestine, that does not sound good, and abscesses were more common in cannabis users versus non-cannabis users, while electrolyte disturbances and malnutrition were common in cannabis users still, even though it did seem like malnutrition was most common in non-cannabis users. So very interesting findings. Conclusion here. You can grab the link if you wanted to go through that. But ought to deschedule so we could find out way more. Well, from Science Direct, Impact of Rec and Medicinal Cannabis on Surgical Patients Review. Now, this is an older one from 2019, though it made its rounds on Twitter, and I don't think I've shared it if it's that old, so might as well, because the findings are promising. But Impact of Rec Cannabis and Medicinal Cannabis on Surgical Patients, a review of studies done. And so just going to stick to the highlights. Of course, you can grab the link to go through it, but cannabinoids reduce intestinal motility, gastric acid secretion, and nausea. Cannabinoids improve pain control, reduce inflammation, and increase appetite. All things that sick people often really, really need. There are few pharmacological cannabinoids available currently, and this was as of 2019. Legality of rec and medicinal cannabis varies widely by state, and again, it's evolved quite a bit since then and will continue to evolve. But main thing to highlight, increasing access to recreational and medical cannabis will affect surgical patients. And based on what we know thus far, it's likely going to have a more positive impact than a negative one, if anything. But that's just me speculating at this point, because I'm kind of biased. But moving along, from PubMed, this one November 2024, and these are probably the best findings we've gotten in a long time. Cannabis use and age-related changes in cognitive function from early adulthood to midlife in 5,162 Danish men. This is probably one of the longest running studies on a larger sample size that looks at cognitive function over time. So I invite you to read the introduction and methods, but I'll just jump to the results because they speak for themselves. Men with a history of cannabis use had less cognitive decline, not more, but less, from early adulthood to late midlife compared to men without a history of cannabis use. Riddle me that. Among cannabis users, neither age of initiation of cannabis use nor frequent use was significantly associated with a greater age-related cognitive decline. And so in a sample of more than 5,000 men followed for a mean of 44 years, we found no significant harmful effects of cannabis use on age-related cognitive decline. Read it and weep. Fucking love findings like that. Well, last one from Plus One, combinatorial effects of cannabinoid receptor 1 and 2 agonists on characteristics of proteomic alteration in MDA-MB231 breast cancer cells. And so how does cannabis help keep the breasts on our beautiful women? Well, as of November 11th, the findings down here show that selective CB agonists and their combination suppress breast cancer characteristics in this type of cells. The exposure of CB agonists also altered the proteomic profile of this same MDA MB231, which could lead to cell proliferation and motility suppression. And so in other words, from ChatGPT, imagine there are bad guys in your body trying to grow and cause trouble. Scientists are trying to figure out how to stop them, and they found that by pressing special off buttons called CB1 and CB2 receptors in our endocannabinoid systems, they can make these bad guys weaker. In the study, the scientists used a special mix of helpers called CB agonists to press these off buttons in the bad guys. They focused on a really tough type of bad guy called triple negative breast cancer. Here's what happened when they used the mix. 1, the bad guys stopped growing together in groups, like stopping Legos from sticking. 2, the bad guys got stuck in a pause mode, so they couldn't keep multiplying, and they had a harder time moving around and couldn't grow little tools like arms or legs to invade other parts. The scientists also peeked inside the bad guys to see what changed. They found that the helpers messed up important tools and pathways the bad guys used to grow and move. So this mix of CB agonists made the bad guys weaker and less able to cause harm. And how is this plant still a Schedule 1? This gives hope that one day scientists can use these helpers to make medicine to fight breast cancer. Well, it seems like we already know how to do it. Why has this not been rolled out at a mass scale? I don't have the answers. The pharma cartel and their corrupt government agencies, but moving along. One small win we got this past week is MAPS successfully clears path for cannabis research through FDA formal dispute. Why on earth would it take this long when we have so many awesome studies? 38 states already providing medical? I don't know, but after 3 years of negotiation with the FDA, MAPS has successfully secured FDA clearance to conduct a clinical trial, MJP2, to examine the use of smoked cannabis for the treatment of PTSD symptoms among 320 veterans in Michigan, and 2 other states. Why not include all the veterans that you possibly can to get this research done and over with? MJP2's purpose is to generate safety data about cannabis use that mirrors real-world consumption, developing an evidence base to inform medical professionals, while MAP's successful negotiations with the FDA will benefit future clinical researchers investigating cannabis as a potential medical treatment for serious health conditions. Certainly a great precedent. Now, don't know when this is necessarily going to happen, probably years out, and we're going to have to wait a long time for the findings. However, certainly a good development in terms of cannabis and science, and small victories along the way until we end up getting some sort of large-scale reform. But of course, full links in the comments. Well, we got another big precedent out of New Jersey, and we'd hope we'd see more states follow along with this, or at least more insurance providers, as 3 New Jersey municipalities add medical cannabis to health plans, which is massive. As part of a new partnership with major insurance carriers Aetna and Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, municipal workers in Trenton and school district employees in Orange and Teaneck will be able to receive financial support for medical cannabis products, according to a November 19th press release. Normalize this across the damn country. Billed as a first-of-its-kind group health plan, the program seeks to aid employees suffering from conditions such as chronic pain, anxiety, arthritis, insomnia, PTSD, and the side effects of cancer treatment, while also addressing broader mental health challenges. And so, is it part of a bigger health picture? You'd like for that to be the case. We'd like to see this happen more and more, but the partnering organizations believes the benefit plan can serve as a model for how cannabis can be responsibly incorporated into everyday healthcare, offering broad access and supporting a healthier, more balanced workforce, which no doubt it would, especially more cannabis, less alcohol in the work culture, I think would go a very long way to keeping people healthier and better. And it is worth noting, of course, since legalizing for adult use, their medical program has dropped significantly because you can just get the medicinal plant out of a rec dispensary. Maybe you'll get discounts for still shopping medical, and that's why people still do it, but the plant is the medicine in itself, right? So that's the reminder. Well, from Forbes, Senate Farm Bill draft seeks to close loopholes for intoxicating hemp. Now, this was published yesterday. However, from my understanding, Democratic Senator Debbie Stabenow of Michigan and chair of the Senate Ag Committee revealed their version of the Farm Bill earlier this week, featuring updated hemp regulations. And from my understanding, this might have already been thrown out. So let me know in the comments if that is the case. However, of course, one thing that we would hope for is that if a new farm bill gets introduced and it does in fact close the loophole, that could be one of the most bullish things for the adult use legal industry, because of course that would make this fake hemp-derived synthetic THC illegal again, effectively at the federal level. And so that is probably one of the biggest things we could hope for. However, just let me know, because I do believe that this was already introduced earlier this week and it's been shut down already. So I'm not sure why Forbes is writing it as if it's new. It might appear that the Senate might actually do something productive for the legal cannabis industry for once. It's also promising that we're seeing out of states that don't even actually have legal adult use cannabis starting to clamp down on the synthetic fake stuff that is obviously the leading driver of unintended mental consequences, and of course, underage sales, and a lot of the things that you just don't get in legal states because out of adult use dispensaries, you need IDs to get in, and you know you're actually getting the medicinal plant that most of these studies that I feature are built around. As lawmakers approve rule to remove flower from hemp sales, at least as of right now in Tennessee, and so they will keep oil and other products like that on the shelves. However, main thing is they want to get rid of the flower. Hemp farmers did plead with lawmakers this week not to remove the flower from retail sales, though it appears it has gone through, and so hundreds of products will still be available on the market, just not those that contain dangerous contaminants or extremely high THC levels, he said. And hopefully this is the start of some new responsible business practices by some of these hemp companies, because responsibility and safety has not been their forte in the past. And just get a load of this very dramatic Democratic state rep saying, oh, you're killing a $200 million industry in Tennessee, not giving a fuck about the health and safety of the youth or anyone there. And then, of course, just some common sense. This Portland Republican Lambert struck back via text, yeah, the new rule won't come remotely close to destroying the hemp industry here. They can still create products and sell them, just not flower sprayed with bad pesticides or certain other things that are harmful for your lungs, right? And so, moving along though, just highlighting how confusing the situation has become. High on hemp, implications of the Farm Bill for national weed markets. And isn't it kind of crazy to think that when the Dems flipped the Senate and everyone was optimistic that, oh shit, cannabis is actually going to be reformed at the federal level, there was this much interest in Delta-8 THC, hence that led with our entire stock run however many years ago. And then sadly, since the inaction from Cuck Schmuck Schumer and all of these lying politicians, we've seen the American interest certainly just shift and go to the synthetic derived crap that is just cheaper, knockoff, not as healthy, not as reliable, but that has been the trend. It's very sad to see. Now, more on a research publication of this, if you wanted to grab the link in the comments, I'm not going to go through. But what could possibly reverse this trend? Maybe a new Farm Bill loophole closed, and then Schedule 3 and a bit more reform happening, and a little hoo-ha? That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Now, moving along, last few stories, everybody. Apparently, MJ Biz Daily, not very cannabis-friendly for a cannabis organization or publication, as with 6 weeks left in 2024, Washington, D.C.-based cannabis lobbyists and federal reform advocates already have entered wait until next year mode. Okay, well, that's not so promising, but no one's holding their breath for safe. I didn't even want to bring it up till this late in the video because, again, I don't trust the Dems. But let me be clear, thank you, Aaron Moffat, for at least setting the record straight. Cannabis Roundtable is not letting our foot off the gas on safe banking. It can't wait another month, year, or Congress. That's why we had nearly 30 productive meetings on the Hill yesterday to help get this done now. And so good luck. Thank you, Aaron Moffat, and whoever you're there working with. Hopefully something comes of this, but hard to trust everything we've seen thus far. While last few ones from Jeremy Burke, Cultivated Live with Josh Schiller of Boise Schiller Flexner. I have not watched this, so I'll admit I don't know what they talk about, but likely talking on the Boise case, and we will have oral arguments for that, I believe, in early December. So, yeah, thank you, Jeremy, for putting this together. I do plan to listen to it later. But last few stories as well, updates out of Germany. So despite the lack of commercial market coming about in a timely manner, thank you, Dank Informer, for sharing breaking news that Germany's Q3 2024 medical cannabis imports were up 73% quarter over quarter for a total of 20,119 kilograms versus Q2 2024's 11,634, according to Germany's Federal Institute for Drugs and Medical Devices. And so that's very promising, seeing a jump of 73%, of course, quarter over quarter. Now, I'll put this link in the comments if you want to go through that and then just hit translate and investigate yourself. But last but not least, an easy place to find all this information from Pablo Zuanic, Germany. Cannabis imports ramping up, and for context, a bigger jump than Ohio rec. So lots of notes he adds down here. This link will be to his report. Of course, I will put that in the comments. Let's see how many pages this one is. But again, thank you, Pablo, for putting this equity research out there for free. 14 pages on German imports in Q3 as of November 20th. So thank you, Pablo, for sharing this and making it available for all of you. Links will be in the comments for everything mentioned. And I just wanted to share that this is going to be my last video for a period of time, because next week I'm heading to Colombia to travel, work remotely, and also enjoy myself for some long weekends down there. Main thing, though, is I'm going to wait until we get some probably definitive positive catalyst in cannabis, just because I want to enjoy Christmas and not be so focused on this, while also driving myself nuts by being so focused on this. Though I will be back, okay? So if we get some good news in December, I might be back, third week of then as quickly as that. I also, if we don't get any news in December, I might just try and enjoy the rest of my December off and then come back in January when I'm sure we're going to have some more updates by then. I just wanted to give you all a heads up. I'm sure many of you won't watch the video till this far, so I might just put a little snippet at the beginning just to let you all know. But hey, for those of you that do watch, thank you so much for doing so. I will be back in 2025 for sure. Just if there's something worth sharing before then you might see me as well. But that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. Besides that, if you enjoyed this video or you learned anything, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you likely in 2025, everybody. Till then, take care. Have a good week. Happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. All the best to all y'all. Take care.